Hello everyone and welcome to BoredMaster, the channel created to help cure your boredom one video at a time. In today's video, we'll be exploring the page entitled Parents, where we'll look at a few of the top posts from the past month. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up to let me know you'd like to hear more. On to the video. This first post is titled, "Entitled Parents Stole My Switch and Held It Hostage Because I Wasn't Visiting Anymore." I'm 20, male, and moved out of my parents' house at 18 because I really can't stand them. And it's for all the kinds of reasons you can guess. They were jerks, favored my younger siblings, used me as free childcare, told me, "What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine," and all that BS. When I left, my dad told me not to let the door hit me on the way out, and don't come back. I got the smallest and cheapest apartment I could find, and have worked the same full-time job for 2 years. My parents didn't even hold out a month before calling me and begging me to come back home. Because without me, someone else had to watch my siblings. I refused, because now I finally had time for myself. My dad eventually called me and actually demanded I move back home and pay them rent instead, because family is more important than my personal independence. I said back to him that my life is important too, and for once I'm getting to live for myself. So he basically said, "Well then, see how long you can last without us." And we didn't talk for months. I don't know what he was hoping for. I managed well enough by myself. My family seemed to slowly accept that I wasn't going to come crawling back, and over time we seemed to mend things. I could tell they were having a hard time dealing with the fact things were on my terms and not theirs. They begged me to watch my youngest siblings from time to time, even though the two that are closest to me in age are in their mid-teens now. But my parents don't want to put babysitting on them any more than they have to, which is hypocritical of them, since they tried to put it on me as much as possible. And yes, I have called them out on that. They responded with gaslighting and more months of silence yet again. And again, they were the ones to come crawling back to me for help. Not long ago, I bought myself a used Nintendo Switch, though could only afford one game for it at the moment, which is Mario Kart. I got it bundled with the console for a good deal. My mom came by on a Saturday and asked me to watch my two youngest siblings for a while. She basically pushed them in the door at me and ran, and I was stuck with these two rowdy kids all day in my tiny apartment. My mom didn't come back until after 9 p.m., and that was because I called her and made her come get the kids, and she really didn't like that I cut her fun time short. I said that unless she wanted to pay me, I wasn't going to be watching my siblings all day anymore. And next time, I won't even open the door, and I'll call the cops if she just leaves them outside. The next morning, I realized I couldn't find my Switch anywhere, so I called my parents, and like I thought, one of my siblings took it. I said I was coming over to get it right away, but my mom said it could wait because my youngest sibling was gaming on it, and she didn't have the heart to take it away. I said it was taken without my permission, and I will be taking it back. I got on my bike and rode there ASAP, and when I arrived, my sibling was crying because the Switch's battery had gone dead, and they didn't have the charger. I told them to give it back. But my dad took it and said I can have it back when I agree to start helping out with my siblings more. I told him if that's how he wanted to play this, I'd get the police involved. And no, I was not bluffing. He dug his heels in and insisted I wouldn't do it, until I pulled my phone out and started dialing. My mom yelled, "Wait!" and hurriedly took my Switch back from my dad. He called her a traitor and demanded she return it to him instead of me, but she said it wasn't worth having police called on them. Before leaving, I told them if this ever happens again, I'd be calling the police first. And if they want a switch for my siblings so bad, they can get their own. My dad yelled that I can't disrespect him like that, and I countered that even though I'm an adult, he's not bothered to ever show an ounce of respect to me. And I'd had enough. Then I walked out with him yelling at me to come back and face him. Right now, it's back to silence from them. My mom texted me once, begging me to still watch my siblings. I said that if she wanted me to babysit so bad, she could pay me. And I'd only take the money in advance, because I'm not doing it for free anymore. Especially after they stole from me and tried to keep from returning my property. They don't own me. I'm an adult with my own place and my own life, and they can either get used to it or get lost. It's been over a week since that text convo, and none of them have as of yet talked to me again. Which is fine. They can deal with their own messes. Edit. Holy. I didn't expect to come back to this many messages. Thank you everyone for all the support and awards. It means a lot to me. This next post is titled, Crazy Liar Dad Finds Out Where I Live and Attempts to Give My Apartment to His Random Friends Without My Knowledge. So this is long. I have a TLDR at the bottom, LOL. To add some context, I'm a female, age 25. My parents are so crazy to the point to where me and the majority of my family had to cut them off. For me personally, my dad completely, and my mom calls on occasion. My mom also tries to overstep, such as inviting him to family events he's specifically not invited to. The reason is, he tries to steer every conversation and attempts to talk about himself. People usually don't care or want to hear them. He argues with people and threatens their lives. And she purposefully does these things, knowing they'll cause an argument, and she gets joy out of it. So needless to say, sane people don't want these issues in their lives. My dad is delusional and narcissistic, to the point where he thinks he's famous, and claims everyone runs up to him for pictures, and says he's famous and someone he knows is making a movie about him. Lies about it, obviously, because no one has ever seen this, and it's a running joke. People laugh at him. He thinks it's with him, not at him. He's lost all of his friends due to his poor behavior, such as arguments, belittling, nonstop phone calls. But to the story of his lies and delusions. I have an apartment, and I didn't give him my address, because we aren't on speaking terms, and threatened my life because I wouldn't give him my personal info, so he could take out loans in my name. Like, that's an obvious no. Also, I didn't grow up with him, so I barely know him. He has apparently told people he has an apartment, mine, that he lets his daughter, me, live in. This is what I've been told. He likes to pretend to be a big shot, so I guess he told some people who needed a place to live they could stay at his spare apartment. He got my address from a family member. I assume my mom, due to the fact that no one I know speaks to him. One day I get a call from my apartment building manager, saying there are some people at the gate, saying they're here to move into your unit. Is this correct? I was just as confused as she seemed, as well as the people he sent to live at my place. He somehow thinks it's his place. Mind you, it's my place. I paid the bills, and I didn't even know he knew my address. So I go out to meet these said guests, as there was much confusion. These 3 people, 3 random sketchy older-looking men. Side note, I would at most let a friend stay a few nights if needed, not random strange men. I ask, what's going on? My building manager stayed because she wanted to know what's going on and wanted to help sort it out. And she would also know who's moving in and out because she's in charge of leasing and the building isn't that big. We all know each other. The 3 men proceed to tell me they're moving in their place. We're here for the keys. You're his daughter, right? He said you'd be out by the time we got here, and keys would be at the front desk. We all looked and I said, do you see a front desk? I asked to see what was the address. We thought maybe wrong address? Nope, my address. So the guy said, your dad said he kicked you out, 'cause he said you're freeloading, and he had you leave the keys at the non-existent front desk. By this time, all 5 of us were confused, but they had my address. I said, he doesn't even have my address, so I don't know how he got it. By this time, they're trying to call him to sort it out. He's not answering at the moment. So I explained to them, I don't know how you or he got this address. I haven't spoken to him in about a year, and I don't know how I'm freeloading or what he's told you. But this is my place. I don't know what's going on. Y'all need to figure it out with him. But I have no place for you. Sorry. They tried to get me to call him. I said no, and calling won't change anything. And this isn't my prob, so I can't help you. By the way, they didn't seem threatening. It was just random and weird for all. I hear one guy on the phone talking to my dad, and I hear him telling him, she's lying, etc. Ask her to show you the lease. At this point, me and one of the guys and my building manager are all looking like this is odd, and he looks embarrassed. My manager stepped in at this time, luckily. She told the men, you almost have the wrong place. She's on the lease, the only one. You will all have to leave and sort it out. I can say, despite them looking sketchy initially, they were as calm as could be in their odd situation, because in all honesty, the only faults they had was believing my dad. They thought they were moving into an apartment for free. If I was in that situation, I wouldn't be happy either. After apologizing, and before leaving, I heard one of them saying, I knew something was up. He's always lying. I asked, what did he tell you? One of the men said he told me he had a spot for him to move in, all furnished and paid up to the rest of the year. I kicked my daughter out 'cause she's freeloading, but claimed he couldn't get out of the lease. I said something like, well, like your friend said, he is a liar. I don't know how, why, and what made him do this. I never gave him my address. He isn't on a lease. I don't even talk to him. So, I'm sorry, but hope it works out. I don't know what my dad thought would happen, but like I said, he's delusional. He probably assumed all he was saying was true. Or maybe he assumed there was a front desk, and whoever was at the front desk would just magically let 3 random people in, and I'd have no say? It's all so crazy that I can't even attempt to understand. There is no use, LOL. Also, I told my manager thanks, and if anyone ever comes when I'm not home, please give me a call or call 911. If I have a guest coming, I'll be home to greet them. TLDR, my delusional dad, who I haven't spoken to in over a year, somehow got my address and told 3 of his friends my apartment was his and sent them to move into his apartment. We're only 2 stories in and I'm already blown away. Let me know in the comments below how you'd handle these and the upcoming situations. The 3rd post is titled, Entitled Mom Stops Me from Being a Porch Pirate. This happened to me a few hours ago, and I'll try to keep it brief. About a week ago, I ordered Alpha Sapphire, and today it arrived. My friend and I walk home together after school, so I, seeing the notification that my package arrived to my house, decided to walk up my front porch to check the mailbox. Let me remind you again, this is my mailbox, not some random packages. My friend had left by this point, so it was just me on my front porch. Well, it was just me until I hear someone clear their throat from behind me. I turn around to this lady and her son. She says, "Excuse me, the owners would be quite upset if they knew you were taking their packages." I laughed and said, "Ma'am, if you actually knew them, you'd know they'd be happy if I brought their packages in." She responds with, "Uh-huh. How about you put those packages back where they belong?" I respond with, "Yeah, in my house." I gesture to my house. "So I'll be doing that." She says, "There are so many porch pirates in this neighborhood. How do you feel setting this example for my child?" I have to mention here, I know everybody who lives on my street, and she doesn't live here. At this point, I'm starting to get tired, so I turn around and ring the doorbell. "Happy?" I say. She responds, "I'm not moving out of this stairwell until the owners of the house come out, you know." I nod in a sarcastic way. It took a solid minute, but eventually my mom opens the door. She notices the woman before me. "Can I help you?" my mom asks the lady. "Yes, actually. Do you know this boy?" the lady responds. I wave to my mom, and she audibly laughs. "You serious? This is my son." The lady gawks and then walks away. My mom asked what that was about, and I explained. I guess she's coming from a good place. But what the heck, lady? This final post is titled, "Narcissist Parents Wanted Me to Trade Houses with Them Because I Got a Slightly Better One, and then literally stole my air conditioners when I refused to give them money." I'm going to start this off by saying that if you have a house and don't have cameras, get cameras. I have some now, but I should have gotten them sooner. I live in a pretty typical manufactured home in Arizona. My parents also live in one just a few streets over. Despite how close we are, I'm VLC. For my listeners, that means very little contact. I'm VLC because they are just bad people. They treated me okay as a kid, but things changed as soon as I was in my late teens. I was expected to do more and pay my way as soon as I finished high school. That was fair. I was an adult by then, after all. But my parents wanted a lot more in rent than what I'd have to pay to get my own apartment. I'd have had next to nothing left of my monthly paycheck if I'd given them what they wanted. So I refused to give them more than a fair amount, plus a share in utilities. And I started buying my own food as well. My father openly said this was not good enough, and my parents actually filed official paperwork to evict me when I refused to cater to their demands. I left home and got an apartment with my best friend. 5 years later, and I bought my own house in a neighborhood not far from my parents'. It's just a manufactured home on a small property, but it was so cheap that I couldn't turn it down. And my monthly mortgage isn't bad either. I even moved my best friend in to help me cover the bills. We were already used to living in the same space, and the house gave us much more room. I may even let another friend move in to get some more rent money for the mortgage, because we've got one room that's actually left unused right now, since the house is a 3-bedroom. My parents, though, somehow didn't like my independence from them. Did they want me to fail or something? I don't know, but the incident that caused the VLC was when they demanded I trade houses with them. Yes, you read that correctly. They actually wanted to trade. Their manufactured home is smaller and older than mine, and has one less bedroom. And their yard is smaller too. Not that either of us have any grass. It is Arizona, after all. When they first saw my place, they looked pissed. After a couple more visits, my father actually said it wasn't fair that I was doing better than them, and I was rubbing my nicer house in their faces. It's just an old manufactured home in one of the hottest states in the U.S. Seriously? What's to brag about? But I guess having something even slightly better than what my parents had irked them. And as I've already said, they actually demanded we trade houses because of it. My friend who lives with me literally fell onto the couch laughing when they said that, and I couldn't help but join in. My father said it was not funny, and to give him what he wants. When I recovered my composure, I said he and my mother were not entitled to my house, or anything I own for that matter, and then told them to get the out. After that, we barely spoke, and then the pandemic hit. Didn't really change my life much. I liked the peace and quiet, and my friend knows to leave me alone most of the time. My father, however, got laid off, and he struggled to find another job. He ended up working in the local mart walls for half a year before getting a better paying job. I did get a kick out of seeing him there when I was shopping for groceries, but as much as I hate him, I'm not gonna call him a bad employee. He actually did fine, but during that time, he and my mother kept calling and asking for money. And I know what y'all are thinking. don't lend them anything. They didn't want loans, they wanted handouts. Why? Because they raised me and I owed them. I said if they didn't want the cost of raising a kid, they shouldn't have had one. A few weeks ago, though, my mother called me begging for money because their dinosaur of a window AC unit finally crapped out. I told them I was not giving them anything, and they were too cheap to replace that old AC unit for a long time. So I wasn't going to buy them a new one. My mother then complained about how I have two in my house, and the least I could do is give them one. I then said that maybe if she and my father weren't always pissing away their money on beer and MJ all the time, they'd have the money to buy another AC. Then I said I wasn't giving them one of mine or any money. End of story. Only it wasn't the end of the story. A few days later, I came home from work to find my house had been broken into. My front door locks were drilled out, and both of my window AC units were gone. Nothing else was stolen, but they went out of their way to make a huge mess for some stupid reason, probably to make it look like a typical robbery or something. I knew it had to have been my parents and called the police. I told police that I heavily suspected my parents of the theft because they act entitled to my stuff, even though I'm a grown man that doesn't live with them. I went with police to my parents' house, and sure enough, they had both my AC units going in their windows. When confronted my parents, they obviously denied the theft, then claimed they already owned the AC units, but statements from their neighbors said otherwise. But my parents still denied the theft. I'd bought both AC units used online years ago, which means I had no receipts for them. So I figured my only option was to look for witnesses in my own neighborhood. And as luck would have it, a neighbor across the street has security cameras. And the edge of one of them caught just enough to see my parents showing up in my father's truck. My father could be seen walking with a cordless power drill in hand, and a few minutes later they came back to the truck with my AC units. Then went back in to ransack the place, I'm guessing. With this evidence in hand, police had cause to arrest my parents. At first, both of them acted like they'd done nothing wrong, but I convinced police to let me do the talking. I said they could either return the AC units to my home and clean up the mess they made, or I'd let the police arrest them both right there. They'd already stolen from me, lied to the police, trespassed, vandalized my house, broke my front door locks, and there was video evidence of what they'd done. If I pressed charges, they were both going to jail for sure. My parents looked deflated, then asked for a moment to talk with each other in their bedroom. I heard a lot of shouting from both of them, and I could hear my mother yelling that my father was an idiot, and he was trying to blame me in turn. After about 5 minutes of that, they came back out looking even more deflated and said they'll return the AC units and stop bothering me for money if I didn't press charges. I said they were going to clean up the mess in my house and buy new locks for my front door as well, and then I wanted written apologies from both of them on top of it. They begrudgingly agreed and even got a police escort back to my house. My father was forced to put the AC units back in my windows, and then left my mother to clean up the huge mess they made while he went out and bought replacement locks for my front door. He was gone about an hour and came back with a new stainless steel lock set to replace the knob and deadbolt. Then he had to help my mother finish cleaning. During this time, I let the two cops just sit and watch them while drinking soda. They said it was very entertaining. After everything was cleaned up, I gave my parents each a piece of paper and a pencil, then told them to write out apologies to me for what they'd done. My father looked especially pissed and said I was treating him like a child. I said he was acting like one and never stopped treating me as a child either. This was just me holding him accountable, and I could have sent him to jail, but I felt like this was better for teaching him a lesson. He then kind of snorted and started writing. My mother wrote out a good apology, but my father's was pretty half and passive-aggressive. But I didn't care. It seemed to kill him a little inside to have to do it, and when he was done, he left without speaking to me. My mother said she was sorry and she'd leave me alone, then followed after him. The two cops said they thought the whole thing was hilarious, and then thanked me for giving them an excuse to take a break while on the job before leaving. Not long after, I shelled out to get some cameras for the exterior of my house, so if someone tries to break in again, I'll get it on video. I only have 2 cameras, but added a couple more fake ones that look real enough just to scare people off. I haven't heard a peep from my parents, but their next-door neighbor told me they went and bought a new AC unit. Guess they had the money for one after all. Makes me wonder how high they were when they thought it was a good idea to steal from me. Maybe having lean pockets for a while will teach them. Then again, they are who they are, after all. Edit. I've been questioned on how I got a house when I was only 23 years old. To start off with, the place was really cheap. In Arizona, you can find old manufactured homes on tiny properties for a very doable amount. I also kept and still have pretty good credit. The house and land were only $55K. The house was a little bit of a fixer-upper too, but I was able to put $10K on a down payment, and I was able to get approved for a loan for the rest. The house is no prize, and by now it's at least 30 years old. But it's home, and once I have it paid off, I'll feel much more financially secure. Thanks again for listening. Again, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. Also, be sure to click the notification bell to stay up to date on my latest videos. I'll see you in the next one.